Can you guys hear me now? I think this should do it. At least the software is showing me you guys can hear me now. Sorry for the wait. Okay, so welcome everyone to our first book club for the channel. This is not a regular everyday study with me stream, but this will be first of its kind, and we will see how it works out and maybe, make changes along the course. So, welcome everybody. I hope you guys are staying healthy, hydrated, productive, and happy. Thank you for joining us today. Let us know in the chat where are you from and any insights about the book before we head into the main crux of the book, which are the 7 habits. So, yeah, go chat away. I see a few people there. Hi, Medic. Thank you for joining. How are you doing? How's your family doing? And how are you doing health wise? Are you resting well? I know you've been studying quite a bit. Hey, Hira. Thank you for joining us. Glad you can make it. Hey, Marius. How are you? Thank you for joining. I'm glad you could make it. Thank you so much, Marius, for making it work. I know you're visiting your parents and everything. So, yeah, thank you for joining. Well, I will put the timer not on the screen, but I'll just put a timer so that I don't blabber a lot about certain things. We'll give like 15 minutes intro of what the book talks about for those who who haven't read it, and then we can open for insights and whatever you guys want to chat about based on whatever we've learned. Well, this is the book that we'll be reviewing, not reviewing, but just talking about. I felt this book was too dense for me to grasp, honestly. It has a lot of material. I have a lot of notes, as you guys can see. I have like notes, post-its everywhere. So I will not be sharing all of that, but I would be touching upon a lot of aspects. I just feel that it has so much it has so much packed in it. It's especially for me because starting off, I had a lot of work to do on myself from a self-improvement perspective. So I thought this was way too much for me in the sense of a lot of knowledge and a lot of insights and a lot of wisdom, if you would call it. So, just starting off, this is the book about being effective, not efficient, not productive, but actually being effective. That means doing the things that matter the most. And how to figure out what that is. Stephen Covey actually lays out different habits that you can ingrain in yourself, in your everyday life, that would help you achieve that. So the way 7 habits are broken down is basically first part, the first 3 habits are personal. They are personal development. That's something that you need to work on within yourself. Ask yourself those questions and build upon that. The next 3 habits is what he talks about is about how to deal with people and your environment, with the world. He talks a lot about dependence, independence, and then interdependence, which I will touch upon a little bit. And then the last habit is the habit of renewal, which actually brings in together with everything, and then that's what he says is called sharpen the saw. So starting from the first habits, let me get the index so I don't miss anything. So habit number 1 is basically, oh yes, before we start with the habits, one more very important aspect that I found was very different in this book than others I've read is about this is not changing your attitude. So basically the author basically says that whatever improvement you need to do it from a principle standpoint. A lot of self improvement or other books have been talking about changing your attitude towards things. Yes, sure, that will help, but if it's superficial attitude and it does not have any principle behind it, you will have hard times either sticking to it, or it might not bring the same value that was supposed to. Like, you can have a positive attitude and you can have affirmations and everything, but if those things are not based on some core principle, then that's not the same thing, because those things can be misused and abused, as he talks further in the book as well. So he comes from a place where you should have certain principles in life, where you need to adhere to those, rather than thinking of what your environment is making you do, and certain core things that do not change no matter what the circumstances are, no matter what the world is, where the world is headed. Okay, heading into the chat to see if you guys have anything to say. I just don't want to talk at you guys. I want you guys to be involved. If you guys want to chime in on anything, this would be a good time. I mean, feel free to chime in whenever. I will always take a break and take a look at what you guys have to say. Hey, Rabia. That's great, Hira. Please feel free to share your inputs on anything that I'm saying, or even something related to that particular habit or aspect if you feel that I've missed something. Sure, Medic. Good luck for your session. Thank you for being a cheerleader of the channel, Medic. Thank you so much. Good luck for your session. Okay, so we were talking about paradigms and principles. He basically says it's basically he talks about how humans are programmable, in the sense that we are programmed by either our genetics or our environment or our circumstances in life, and that's how we are made. And he talks about building character as principles to achieve success in life, not superficial ways of having a positive attitude. Or other books do talk about that. One of them is actually, I haven't read it, but from the stuff that I've heard about it, the law of power by Robert Greene, that kind of touches more upon doing things that would get you ahead in life, regardless of what the character or the main motivation behind that is. Sometimes those can be negative motivations, like make sure you are winning regardless. I'm sure, Marius, you can chime in, because it was pretty disappointing when you had shared your insight about that book. So, although it is on my reading list for now. Okay, so basically, this book, as Stephen Covey himself says, is set of constructs for guidance in the face of turbulence. That's when you have a set character built. It will be not about achieving success, but it will be about being more effective and becoming better leaders, and in turn, becoming better people. Um, yes, Marius, that is actually that is actually one way to say it. Know your why. And for that also, I have been following Simon Sinek, and he also touches upon that. And that is something that I will be touching later in the book, where I have tried to synthesize different ideas, because I feel this book touches on it brings together a lot of things that I have seen in other books of other authors, or other ideas by other people, especially TED Talks and stuff. So yes, Marius, definitely that is something like know your why. But that's still not the first habit. That still comes in from habit number 2 onwards. But yes, in essence, that's what it's reaching at. So basically, what Stephen Covey says is, one thing is character ethics and one is personality ethics. What other books or the new kind of productivity or, success books are talking about is more about personality ethics. This is basically something like a social band-aid or something like an aspirin, which will act quick, you'll see quick results, but will not be deep rooted and will not be primary to your core. What character ethic means is integrity, humility, courage, justice. These are the core character ethics, simplicity, modesty. So these things are ever golden and they always stand true for the test of times. Personality ethic, however, calls upon public image, your personality, your attitudes, your skills, your techniques. So that's like the second level. If there is no base, that becomes superficial. But if you have the character ethics as your base, that's what you can base your life out of, and you can actually achieve success, but not just superficially. And the reason why he says that is he justifies it later in the book about how you will actually feel satisfied doing that. There are a lot of quotes in the book that I like, but I'll let you guys read it. Okay, so let's see. Yes, Hera, that is actually true. The first three habits are actually focused on self mastery, as he opens the book with saying that you have to first work on yourself in order to work with others. But he does give actionable insights as to how to work with others as well at the same time. But yes, most of the work we have to do it from within ourselves, since that is something that will help us build relationships or build other principles where we are interacting with the environment and the world. So that was the whole idea of giving a character character focus, then the personality focus. That's the idea of the whole book. So starting with the habits, the first habit is called being proactive. Let me know before I tell you about what I learned, if you guys want to share about what the first habit meant for you guys. Being proactive. It says principles of personal vision. Feel free to share what you guys learned from that habit if you want. Marius, have you read the book? Or are you here for, learning more about what it talks about? I just want to know so I know how many people have read it, so I know when to ask for insights. I don't want to put anyone on a spot or anything, but just getting an idea of what you guys are feeling like. There's usually a lag in the stream, so I will give you guys a few seconds so that if you guys have anything to say, I would like to hear that first before I start blabbering again. Okay, so let me start with the first habit that says being proactive. Humans, he says, are self aware beings where we can actually stand outside our minds and actually are conscious of what we are doing, in the sense that we can actually observe ourselves from a distance. Not like physically, but we have that mental power. This is what actually separates us from other living beings, that we have the power of self consciousness and awareness. So that's basically something that we can use to assess ourselves. So as if like I'm sitting and delivering this in front of the camera, I do have that sense of vision that I can imagine myself doing it from across the room as to how that would be looking. So I am self-aware of if I want to, I can step outside my own being, and you can say I could basically visualize myself sitting and delivering something. Well, Marius, I hope we can inspire you and share with you all the good stuff that it has to talk about, so we can inspire you to read this and apply this. I'm sure you guys must be applying something or the other from the book. I know I was, unknowingly, but if it is more concrete and it's more in a, in a better manner, then why not? Just being more effective at it. So yeah, we hope we can inspire you today, Marius. Okay, so habit one is basically, he says this is a human endowment for us where we can actually step out of our minds and visualize ourselves doing something. So this is when you usually visualize yourself doing something in the future. You know, you can, like, if you are going for a game, for example, for sports people, you visualize the game and you say, okay, I'll hit this mark or that mark, or this is how I'll do. That's how you strategize. So you kind of visualize it all in your mind when it's actually not there, but you can see the field on which you're playing. So that's the visualization, and that's something that humans can do, and it's actually very powerful. And he actually, later in the book, he also tells us in the later habits as to how to actually use that to your advantage. So the first habit, being proactive, he says humans they have responsibility for their actions, no matter who they are, where they come from, what their circumstances are. And I feel this is true, but we are programmable. As he started off, we are programmable creatures, but the best part is we can be programmed by either other people or ourselves. So we have the capability of being programmed, but we have the ability to choose who will program us. Either our circumstances, our family, friends, our genetics, are those guys going to program us, or can we program ourselves? Good news, we can program ourselves. We just know how to do it, and we should have some principles that we'll be able to stick with. And then there's some actionable insights that we'll definitely touch upon. What he says is, we usually, as humans, we say, I did this because, X person said that, or, I had to do this because of X, Y, and Z. It was basically reaction to what the environment is doing towards you, because you don't live in isolation. You'll always be bombarded with what other people are making you do or doing to you that doesn't help, but basically requires your response. So you can say the stimulus is what the environment throws at you, and response is how you react to that. So what the first habit says is, between stimulus and response, you have the freedom to choose. That means you can choose your actions no matter what the stimulus is. You can control what your response is. That takes up a lot of, I say, self-discipline or self-awareness, because in certain cases, if someone slaps you, your first reaction would be to slap them back. But that's a reaction. You have to, basically, he says, you can actually think, and you can stop for a minute and you can think about what your reaction should be and how it's going to affect you. Like, for example, if someone's shouting at us, we'll shout back, because we'll feel emotional about it, and we'll feel angry about it, and we'll respond in a way that we might later regret. This happens sometimes in arguments. We end up saying stuff that we didn't mean to, but they just came out because we were reacting to the situation. We were not being proactive. So this habit teaches you to be proactive in no matter what you do, because you have the ability to choose your response. You have the ability to choose your response to be silent. You have the ability to actually react back by shouting back, or you can be aggressive and you can be abusive, or whatever it is. You have the ability to choose. But having the ability and doing that thing are two different things. We have to train ourselves, we have to program ourselves to do certain things that we want to be done that way, so we can program ourselves as to how to react in certain situations. So that being proactive, we can think back, and we can self-discipline ourselves to see what we would want to do in certain situations. So that's the idea of habit number one. He actually talks about Viktor Franklin, one of the Jews in Nazi camps, about how he, being in prison and everything during Nazi Germany, he could still, use his endowment of self-awareness and still find joy or, find meaning to his suffering. So if you read the book, definitely go through that. And it shows that people, in no matter what, how hard situations are, if we use our endowments as humans, we have the ability and the capability of doing a lot more than we think we are capable of. Then he also talks about how we have a conscience, how we have imagination, how we have independent will. So that is something that helps us to be free to choose our response to no matter what the stimulus is. Our behavior is a function of our decisions and not our conditions. That is something that is very loaded, because we always think that, we are made because of the circumstances we went through. Actually, what we're made of are the string of decisions we made at that point in time. They can be right or wrong. He doesn't say you have to be right every time. He just says that you should be aware of what decisions you made, and then, reflect back on them as to what was right, what was wrong, and how you learned from those. So that's the idea. And he says the word responsibility is, if you break it down into response ability. So responsibility is broken down to response, response, and ability, ability. So we are able to choose our response as human beings. He says, if your life is a function of conditioning of conditions, it is because you have, by conscious decision, chosen to empower those things to control you. I was one of those people too. I still am. I'm still working on it. So I used to say, I cannot do X, Y, and Z because I have ABC limitations. And I have to do this because, I'm limited by my consequences and my environment. Apparently not so. I could have still chosen otherwise to do certain things, but I did not. Let it be due to family, personal, professional, whatever decisions I made were my decisions. I can justify them to myself that I did this because of XYZ, but at the end of the day, I was the one doing them. So if I'm saying I've been conditioned in life in a certain way, that's because I've let my consequences condition me and make decisions for me. Sometimes we run on default. We let, certain things happen the way they were always done, or, whether we like it or not, and then we bicker about it. Actually, we have the decision. We can make the decision to change it and take some action against it if we don't like it. But by doing nothing, we let our environment control what happens to us. That's just being, we cannot blame other people because technically we are making the conscious decision for letting them do it. I hope that makes sense. Let me know if that makes sense to you guys or not. Then he talks about what is the difference between reactive people and proactive people. He talks about reactive people respond based on their feelings, on their circumstances, on their conditions, on the whole environment. Proactive people reflect on their values and they carefully think about what their responses should be, and they internalize those things and select, and then they're still influenced by external factors for sure, but they actually see what would be the right thing to do in terms of based in their core values. If you guys are confused about what core values, he actually talks about finding out your values and what you want your value-based principles to be in the later chapters for sure. Okay, so for actionable steps for habit number 1, first step to okay, before I go to this, I want to also explore the idea of dependence, independence, and interdependence. That was something new for me. We know what dependence is when we are dependent on each other for certain things. Like, for example, when we are kids, we're dependent on our parents to meet our everyday needs, our feeding needs, our cleaning needs, everything. So that's called dependency. As adults, we are independent in those things, but sometimes we are emotionally still dependent on other people, let it be our parents, our siblings, our spouses, anyone in our life. He talks about how we start off as dependent beings, then as we start improving and growing, we become independent beings. And one thing that goes beyond that is called interdependence. That was something very new to me. This concept was very new to me. So honestly, this kind of was my aha moment, as I was like, this is amazing. So what he says is dependence we understand when you are dependent on other people, then you become independent. You feel like you can do, you do not, you have sense of personal security, internal security, and everything. You are independent of other people. But then the next level of that is when you become interdependent, because he says we live in a world full of people, and people can achieve their highest potential by working with each other, not against each other. Because once you become independent, you feel you can take the world by yourself. That's a good thing to have, in the sense that, have that confidence and everything. But that also leads to what you would call narcissism, or how we've seen this corporate culture creeping up, where people think that they can be nasty to people just because they're on the top, because they feel that that's the sense of independence that they drive. But the real successful people, if you see, are the ones who understand that working with people is what's going to bring something, that will create something larger than themselves. So people who are very self-centered or selfish, they reach that stage of independence and then they do selfish things. But then the person who moves beyond that and gets into the interdependence phase is who really understands that we are interdependent on people for certain things, which is a good thing. You're not dependent on them, you're independent enough, but you're interdependent where you can collectively bring your independence and create something bigger. That's a theme you might have seen in successful companies, the heads of successful companies, where they know that they cannot do it by themselves. If they bring people on, like for example, Elon Musk also says, I hire the best people that are smarter, because he knows he's not the smartest person on earth. He will need other people to succeed in the mission, which is larger than himself. He does not want to be the richest man in the world, according to what he says, but he knows that he needs to build something larger than life, and for that he will need a lot of other people doing what they do. They don't have to be dependent on each other, but that I felt was a touch of interdependence. Similar to Steve Jobs, he was a very wise guy, but he knew that putting the team together, the right team together, will actually make Apple what it is today and go beyond. So it was always this theme also always creeps in as to how successful people build their teams. They know there is interdependence, and that's how you can cultivate the maximum potential. Let me know if you guys agree, disagree. What are your thoughts upon interdependence? Exactly, Marius. Act or react. Exactly. You act based on your values, and you react based on what other people are expecting you to do or making you do. Okay, moving on. So the first step, it says, is to achieve personal independence. We feel that we are independent being by just moving out of our parents' houses, or doing things on our own, but we might still be emotionally dependent on them for a lot of reasons, for a lot of things. So the first step is to first bring yourself out of any dependent mode into independence, and then towards interdependence. The first step to personal independence would be to believe deeply, I am what I am today because of the choices I made yesterday, not because XYZ made me do something. And say I choose otherwise, ability to say I choose otherwise if a certain situation is thrown at you. For example, to understand that I am where I am because of the choices I've made in the past, not because of what constraints were put on me. Because those constraints were there, those were the stimulus of my environment, but how I reacted or how I responded to them was completely up to me. So where I am today is because of my own decisions and my own choices that I've made yesterday. And then I'm able to say I'm choose otherwise, that is the sense of independence where I feel that I can do certain things. That's my conscious decision to do. He also says, take the initiative. So being proactive means taking initiative in your life. What does he mean by that? He says that you don't have to be pushy or obnoxious. Um, you know, you have to realize that you have the responsibility to make things happen, but you don't have to wait for something to happen for you to do something. So for example, we say, I will do X, Y, and Z if ABC happens. So you're waiting for your environment to do something. For example, I will start studying if the weather gets good, because I feel the weather is too gloomy right now to do anything. So you're basically letting the weather dictate what you will do. So you're not being proactive. You're not taking the initiative. If you have to study, no matter what the environment, no matter what the weather is, you can go out and study. Open the book and you can start studying. One anecdote from my personal life was, I thought I am a night person and I could only study at night. So I cannot study before 12 a.m. for that matter. So I would actually waste my whole day, and come 12 a.m., I'll be like, this is the time to study. And I would be very effective, no doubt about it. But I always had this thing in mind that I cannot study during the day and I have to study at night, because I had conditioned myself to believe that. And that was actually not true, in the sense I can study whenever I want, technically. But I never felt that I was being effective enough. And that was personal conditioning. Nobody else did that to me, but that was my personal thought process, which was pretty flawed. I had to change that a lot, because every time I sat to study during the day, I had to push myself. I felt I was feeling sleepy. And I thought, that's just because it's daytime, I'm more productive at night. So if I'm a night owl, I should embrace that and do stuff like that. But that was wrong, because that was my own personal conditioning, which was pretty flawed. So I had to, train my brain to do things during the day that I did not like doing. I was actually just procrastinating, if you look at it. So that's one personal anecdote where I thought I will do X, Y, and Z at this time. But now I feel that I'm improving day by day. I still have those episodes, but then that's something that I'm working on. Share something that you guys feel or felt and have changed since then in life, during school life, university life, professional life, wherever you were at in your personal life. Let me know in the chat. I'll get some hydration in. Okay, so ending the first habit, the way we can actually be mindful of what we're doing, you change your language. For example, you say, I must do this because of this. You say, I prefer to do this because of whatever. Because then you are bringing in your conscious decision into the actual, that language kind of, helps train your brain. And then if you say, if only, you can change that to I will. So you say, if only the weather is nice, I'll do X, Y, Z. Then you say, no, I will do this, regardless of what the weather is like. Hey, Dilson. Thank you for joining. Okay, that would be very weird for me to see. Yesterday it was weird. Glad you could join us, and we'd like to hear insights from you also, if you have any regarding this book that we're reviewing, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. Let us know if you've read it. We're still on habit number 1. I have lots to say. For sure, study streamers unite. Okay, so as I was heading into the language of how we can train our minds to change our language really is I must to I prefer, if only to I will, I can't to I choose. We say, oh, I can't do this. Like, no, I choose not to do this. And then, because the author says reactive words often become self fulfilling prophecies. That's because we reinforce our brain. That's how we program. As he noted initially, we are programmable. So this is language is one way to program ourselves by repeating it. Yes, if repeating it to yourself constantly, that language is what the brain picks up and acts accordingly. Which is why affirmations actually work. He talks about affirmations and how to use them in later habit, I believe, habit number 3. But that's the way we reinforce in our brains, and we can train it by changing our language to a lot of certain things. He says, um, listen to your language, and proactive people always subordinate their feelings to values, because feelings are fleeting in the moment, but values stay concrete, and that should be your guiding principle. Your insights are that you need to read more books, Dilson. Yeah, I hope we can inspire you to read this book. I'm glad we can motivate each other. I generally go to your stream, Marius's stream, and everyone to get motivated myself. So yeah, thank you for that as well. For those of who you don't know, not just someone and Dilson, they're both study streamers. I will actually put the in a moment. I'll put their YouTube channel in the chat. So go subscribe to them, send some love, say hi, go to their streams. They're pretty hardworking people. So yeah, go there and you'll be motivated for sure. I usually go there to feel motivated if I feel that I am procrastinating a lot. It helps seeing other people, working towards their goals, and makes you feel that you need to ramp up and, get to work. Okay, with that, that was end of habit number 1 for me. Let me know. Actually, no, sorry. He also tells us about how we can wait, did I mix this? Okay, more than that, he also says that we, as reactive people, work towards a lot of things that are not under our control, because then we say, okay, fine, we will take control of certain things in our life, or all the things, but then we're focusing on the wrong aspects. For example, we cannot control the weather. So even if we want to control something, we'll be like, you cannot control the weather, so let's not try to do that. So focus your energy on what you can and cannot control. This is where the concept of circle of influence versus circle of concern comes in. The author talks about how everything that affects you is the bigger outer circle of concern, which concerns you in some way or the other. And then there's an inner circle, which is circle of influence, something you can actually do about. For example, a circle of concern would be how many hours you study, or how much do you work out, or something that is in your control. And circle of concern would be the people you're around, your relationships with other people, and how other people treat you. That's something you cannot control. You cannot control how other people treat you, but you can control how you treat other people. If you try to control how other people treat you, you will be at a loss, because that's something that is just not doable for you on your own thing. We try to influence certain things that are not possible, in the sense they're not in our circle of influence, but in a greater circle of concern. And then working within our circle of influence, we can improve that and grow it bigger enough to be as big as our circle of concern. And as we develop ourselves, we can improve our circle of concern to be bigger as well. For example, as a kid, your circle of concern is your basic daily needs of being fed and being cleaned, your circle of influence is actually very small, and your concern is also very small on your basic needs. You don't think about world peace, you don't think about climate change, because that's not your circle of concern at that age. As you grow, your circle of concern gets bigger, because as you grow, you developmentally, and other things, you start thinking about other things that do affect you, but you can might not be able to do something about. But during that time, you can improve your circle of influence greater, expand it to become greater, or at least as big as your circle of concern. The day your circle of influence is exactly like your circle of concern, that means you have the ability to control everything that happens to you. If that is what the author talks about, if that's where you are, or your circle of influence is greater than your circle of concern, that's a sad place to be in, because you have all the power, but you don't have the vision to do anything with that. So your circle of concern should always be greater, and your circle of concern should be within that, but you should be expanding its limit as much as you can. So you can do certain things, focus on your circle of influence, what you can do, what you can influence, so that you can expand it to become as bigger as your circle of concern. One very good example is, so for example, he says, there are certain direct problems that we face in our lives, which are, which relate to our own behavior. And then the indirect problems that are caused by other people's behavior towards you, as I mentioned. We do not have control. And there are third kind of problems we do not have any control about. For example, what decision the president makes, kind of. This so we have to identify here, the key is to identify what is in our circle of influence, what is in our circle of concern, and what is beyond that also. So for that, I really like this quote, which is by Alcoholic Anonymous. It says, it's a prayer in Alcoholic Anonymous, which says, Lord, give me the courage to change the things which can and ought to be changed, the serenity to accept the things which cannot be changed, and the wisdom to know the difference. I thought this was the key takeaway, to know what you can and cannot change, so you don't waste your energies doing certain things that just are out of your circle of influence. So actionable steps, the author Mark says is, he says, by taking responsibility and responsibility for your actions, you will take those actions, but what you cannot control is the consequences of those actions. Like, I might make a decision to do XYZ and it will have consequences, but we have to also accept the consequences. We cannot say we just made the decision, but we will not accept the response from the other side as well. We cannot control the consequences, but we have to accept it. And while making these decisions in our life, we will be making wrong decisions at time as well. But that is okay. As long as we acknowledge them, we acknowledge our mistakes, we correct them, and we learn from it. This is actually what is, that's the takeaway, as to we'll always not be right. We will learn as we grow. But then we will have to acknowledge it, correct it, and learn from it, so that we do not make the same mistakes again in life. That's how we take back control. Being right is not taking control. Making a decision, seeing what the consequences are, learning from it, and using that learning for your next decision is how you take control of your life. Okay, so I think that is it for me for the first habit, I believe. He also says, in order to practice this decision making, commit something to yourself and keep those commitments. That will actually reinforce confidence, reinforce your decision making, and accepting the consequences, and so on and so forth. So he says, by keeping your commitments to yourself, you will increase your internal integrity, gain control and responsibility for yourself. And this is a small step you can take on a daily basis that you can actually work from. there. And then keep commitments to yourself, and then keep commitments to other people, and so on and so forth. So let me know if you guys have any insights on how to be proactive, or any anecdotes from your personal life about how you guys have been able to stay proactive in life. We are approaching the end of our book club timing though, and I'm just done with habit one. Let me know if you guys want to break it down into 7 habits, to 7 sessions of an hour each. I don't want to extend the book club beyond an hour because I want everyone to be able to digest it. I don't want this to be a 7 hour course. Let me know how you guys are feeling about it. Dilson and Marius, are you guys streaming right now? Note to self, organize these. These are golden gems. I really need to organize them. Listen, you are streaming. Great. I will actually link your actual stream for people to follow. And I'll link Marius's YouTube channel here. You guys can go subscribe to them. Awesome guys. Okay, so those things are linked in the chat. Come on, guys. Share your stories, anecdotes, something. I want this to be more interactive. I want to learn something from you guys as well as to how you guys apply this in your daily life. Marius, maybe you could talk about if how it's different from the book that you're reading, the Rule of Power. You would like to have a deeper look into the book with more streams about it? Yeah, I feel this book is pretty dense and it has a lot of takeaways. Pretty dense, as I said, at least I felt that way. So, yes, I agree with that. Today we're done with habit one, so maybe we can break it down. I have a lot more learnings. I felt that I have a lot of work to do on my personal self. So, the first 3 habits were very dense for me. I mean, I'm working on the other habits as well, but I feel like I need to do way more work in the first 3 to be able to really apply the next 3, 4 habits. So yes, I agree. Starting off, I feel that I need a lot of work done in my personal internal self department. So for that, yes, that's why I have extensive notes, but I need to definitely organize them better. Maybe you can talk about, Marius, about how you have been doing certain things that are proactive in nature that has changed your life in some way or form. Maybe talk about, why did you start your YouTube channel? You were proactive about something. What was your idea behind it? Maybe you can reflect on the proactivity over there. Like, for example, I started the YouTube channel because I was having issues procrastinating for studying. So this was my way of self-disciplining myself to keep a public commitment. If I make that public commitment of a stream, then I know I am responsible to, keep that commitment. And that's something that I learned from other YouTubers, like from Kenji and Tina Wong. So that's where I learned this, and that was my whole purpose of, forcing myself to study. And maybe, if I can motivate other people while doing that, because I know I find it really helpful if I see other people studying around me. And with this COVID and, social distancing and being remote all the time, it helps being online and having other people study with you. So yeah. A personal quick summary in 1 hour. I think a summary should be not more than 10 minutes for sure. I did go through other people's summaries or reviews of this book. They kind of summarize stuff, but I felt that this book needs more in depth understanding of what it's teaching. Like for me, these little lessons of how I can change my language is something that I need actionable insights, but also the theory behind why I need to do this and how to stick with it. Speaking of habits, I've read this book called Atomic Habits by James Clear. So I feel the theme is the same over here. This book helps me identify what 7 habits I should be having, in the sense of how to develop the 7 habits that I should be having. And this talks about principle based approach, for which I have another book lined up right here, which actually talks about principles, which is right here. So it's called Principles by Ray Dalio. He gives you life principles of what he has learned over the time. So I feel this is a good second book to follow up with. And then the third one would be Atomic Habits. So this book tells you to make principle based habits, what kind of them. This book tells you what principles you should have, how to identify your principles. And this book tells you how to build habits. So I think this is a trio of something that we should definitely explore together. So because the themes of these books are well gelled in. So these will be my next 3 books for our book clubs. So yeah, these 3. As soon as I learn that I'm actually alive and that I'm responsible for it. Oh yes, you're responsible for it because you make the decisions on a daily basis to not cross the road when there's traffic. So yes, you are being proactive. Although certain things we do are kind of by default, like programmed within us, either by other people or our environment. And sometimes we're not making conscious decisions. They're just, our brains are running on default. That's where this book actually has the power to bring you back to the realization that you have the power to choose what you do, and you should be making a conscious decision about everything. Certain things can be automated, like for example brushing your teeth and breathing and all that sort of stuff, but other than that you should be consciously making a decision, weighing in where that will take you. Actually, the other habits in the book actually describe as to how to get there, but I feel the session is getting too long. I think I will actually end it over here and maybe delve into the second habit and the third habit in the next session. I don't want these sessions to be greater than an hour. So I will actually change the topic, change the title to Habit 1, deep dive into Habit 1. And I would love to see for people who will be seeing this as a repeat, I would really love to see what you guys have to say in the comments so we can learn from each other and we can inspire each other to be a better version of ourselves. So I guess it's decided we will end over here and we'll come back for the second habit. I will be putting out polls of the timings during my regular stream times. If you're studying, if you're working, and if you just want to work with people, come join us. We have Pomodoro sessions of 55 minutes each with 5 minutes break. We do switch up the Pomodoro technique to 90 minutes and break times and all that, but that's usually what we follow. So if that's something you want to explore, I would highly recommend, I would encourage you to come and work with us or study with us, whatever you're doing. Help us motivate you, you help us motivate, like help us help you motivate yourself, and also help motivate us by being there and cheering each other up. So with that, I think that is end of our stream for right now. I will be putting out the poll in our regular stream for the next session to continue with habit number 2. And yeah, I guess that's it for now. If you guys have anything to chime in, to say anything that you guys want to share about habit 1 or overall the books or the book club in general, I'm all ears. This is something that I'm also experimenting with, so I'm not sure what form it will take, but this is my proactive decision to do this so that I read some books and I understand them well enough to teach it. And that is something that will ingrain this in me, because if I'm talking about it, if I have to tell 10 other people about it, I need to first understand it myself in that depth, and also learn from you guys about it. What other way which is best to actually gain insights from people? One is books, and other is actually talking to people about it. So yeah. Well, I hope your visit to your parents is going great, Marius. I'm glad you enjoyed, and I hope I can inspire you to read this book on your own at your own time, because I feel like this is one book everybody should read, and not just read once, keep reading. But I've seen that there are different versions of this. I mean, the habits remain the same, but there is a version for kids, and actually there's a version for teenagers as well. So maybe the anecdotes and the insights are more from that level of life, from that stage of life, that can help you relate more if you are a teenager or if you are even younger. So yeah, I highly recommend checking this out. There are some worksheets on these as well. They have a website and everything. As we get to those worksheets, I will definitely point them out here to give you all the resources that you need. Well, with that brings us to the end of the stream. Thank you all for joining and staying with us, and encouraging us to have these sessions. If this becomes pretty successful, then we'll continue to have more sessions if possible. This was my proactive decision to actually read more books, share it with you, and spread the insights and spread the joy of reading and learning. I hope you guys enjoyed, and we will see you guys in the next session with more habits, same book. We'll continue to have a deeper dive. I hope till then you guys can read some on your own and share your insights with us and everybody else. With that, I will end the stream now, and I hope you guys stay healthy, hydrated, productive, and always remember, you can do it. Take care until next time.